I still remember the exact moment my whole world shifted. My mom sat across from me at the dining table, the old family will spread out between us. Her hand pressed down on the papers like she was guarding them from me. She looked me straight in the eyes. No warmth. No hesitation. Only a cold, steady voice I had never heard from her before. Then she said the words that cut deeper than anything she had ever told me. You won't get a single cent. For a second I couldn't even breathe. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about the will. It was the way she said it, like she wanted to hurt me, punish me, erase me. And the worst part? I had no idea what I had done to deserve it. Growing up, everyone thought we were the ideal little family. Mom, Dad, and me, the quiet kid who followed every rule, never argued, never complained. People used to say we were so close, but they never saw what happened behind closed doors. Mom controlled everything. The money, the plans, what we said, how we acted, even what we felt. If something didn't go her way, she would twist it, correct it, or shut it down until it matched her version of perfection. Dad wasn't bad, just silent. He chose peace over truth, calm over confrontation. Whenever Mom raised her voice, he would simply look away, pretending nothing was wrong. Me. I thought her strict rules meant she cared. I thought her decisions were for my good. I believed that her controlling nature was just her way of protecting the family. I was wrong. Very wrong. Because later I learned what she really believed about me, and it broke everything I thought I knew about love and family. The first small cracks started to show long before the will. It began with little things, things most people wouldn't notice. Whenever I visited, Mom started locking her home office. She had never done that before. She used to leave it wide open, piles of papers everywhere, trusting me to walk in and out as I liked. Now the door clicked shut the second I arrived. Then there were the phone calls. Soft whispers would float through the hallway, and the moment I stepped closer, her voice would drop to silence. She'd quickly hang up and pretend she wasn't talking to anyone at all. But the part that hurt the most was the walls. Slowly, my childhood pictures began to disappear. Photos of my birthdays, school events, silly little moments, gone like I had never existed there. I finally asked her why everything felt so different. Why she was acting like she needed to hide something from me. She didn't look at me when she answered. She just kept wiping the counter and said, I'm updating things. You don't need to know. It was the first time she spoke to me like an outsider. I didn't realize it then, but it was the beginning of a much bigger truth she was preparing to bury. A few weeks later, Mom invited me over for what she called a serious discussion. Her tone was stiff, almost cold, the kind she used only when she had already made up her mind about something. When I arrived, she didn't greet me with a hug or even a smile. She sat at the table with her hands folded neatly, speaking to me like I was some guest she barely knew. Her words felt rehearsed, every sentence delivered like she had practiced it in front of a mirror. Dad was already there, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. He kept rubbing his fingers together, staring at the floor like he wished he was anywhere else. The silence between us felt heavy, like something was being hidden. Something big. Mom kept repeating the same phrases. You made your choices. There are consequences. But she never explained what choices she was talking about. She never told me what consequences she meant. I sat there confused and embarrassed, trying to understand what I had done wrong. But no matter how many questions I asked, she dodged every one of them. I left that meeting with a tight feeling in my chest, not knowing that this was only the start of the storm she was building against me. A few days after that strange meeting, everything finally exploded. Mom didn't call me, she sent a long message asking me to come over, immediately. I walked in expecting another cold lecture, but what I got was worse. She looked at me with a kind of disappointment that felt rehearsed, almost forced. Then she started listing things I had never even done. She said I had abandoned the family. She said I didn't visit enough, that I only showed up when I needed something. She claimed I didn't care, that I was ungrateful, that I had chosen my own life over them. None of it was true. Not a single word. I had spent years working extra hours, sending money home whenever they needed help. I checked on them, visited whenever my schedule allowed, tried my best to be present despite everything. But as she kept talking, it became clear, she wasn't describing me. She was describing someone she had invented in her mind. Someone she had convinced herself I had become. I stood there, stunned, trying to defend myself, but every time I opened my mouth she cut me off. It didn't matter what I said. She had already decided I was the villain of her story. And I didn't understand why. Not yet. It didn't take long for the real reason behind her anger to show itself. One evening, while Mom was in the kitchen, I overheard a voice from the living room, my cousin's voice. He had been staying with them for months, but I never imagined he had anything to do with this. Later I found out he had been whispering things to Mom behind my back. Telling her lies that fit perfectly into her fears. Telling her I talked badly about her. Telling her I planned to take advantage of them. Telling her I only came around for money. He fed every insecurity she already carried. And Mom believed him, completely. He knew exactly what to say to her. He made himself look loyal, devoted, trustworthy. Meanwhile, he painted me as careless and selfish. Looking back, all the strange behavior suddenly made sense. The locked office. The disappearing photos. The cold attitude. The serious discussion. She wasn't acting on facts. She was acting on stories. Stories designed to push me out. And without realizing it, Mom had already started replacing me in her life. With the person who wanted my spot the most. A week later, Mom asked me to come over again. Her voice on the phone was sharp and emotionless, like she was calling a business client, not her own child. When I walked into the dining room, the first thing I saw was a stack of legal papers on the table. The will. Spread out like evidence in a case I didn't know I was being judged for. Mom sat straight, her expression unreadable. She rested her hand on the will like she was protecting it from me. Dad was there too, silent, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. I barely had time to sit before she said it. Clearly, calmly, as if she had been waiting to deliver the line. You won't get a single cent. For a moment I thought I misheard her. I waited for an explanation, a reason, anything. But she just stared at me, her eyes cold, her jaw tight. Dad tried to speak, but she cut him off with a glare. She wasn't interested in discussion. This wasn't a conversation. It was a punishment. I wasn't losing money. I was losing my mother. And as I sat there trying to make sense of it, I realized something terrifying. She had already decided who I was, and nothing I said could change her mind. For a few seconds I just sat there stunned. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, like everything was pressing down on me at once. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I didn't try to defend myself anymore. All I could manage was one simple question. Why? Mom didn't hesitate. She went straight into the same accusations she had been repeating for weeks. That I only came around when I wanted something. That I didn't care about the family. That I had chosen my own life. But as she talked, something clicked in my mind. Those weren't my words. Those weren't my actions. Those were the stories someone else had planted in her head. Stories she had accepted because they fed her fears and made her feel right. The more she spoke, the clearer it became. I wasn't talking to my mother anymore. I was talking to the version of me she had created. The version she had been convinced to believe in. And in that moment the pain started to shift. It wasn't just hurt anymore. It was clarity. I finally understood that I wasn't fighting for fairness. I was fighting against a lie she had already chosen to trust. A few days later, Dad called me in private, his voice trembling. He admitted he had known about my cousin's manipulation all along. He had tried to reason with Mom, but she refused to listen, convinced the lies were true. Dad explained how my cousin had been feeding her stories, twisting every small thing I did into proof I was selfish and ungrateful. Hearing it all at once hit me like a wave. The accusations, the cold treatment, the will, none of it was about me. It was a carefully built illusion, and I was the target. I returned one last time, hoping to reach her with the truth. I laid out everything: messages, screenshots, bank transfers, proof of all the times I had supported them. She didn't look at any of it. Instead, she repeated the same words, calm and unwavering. I already made my decision. The will is final. In that moment, I realized I had been fighting for someone who no longer existed. The mother I knew was gone, replaced by fear, pride, and manipulation. I couldn't change her mind, and I had to accept that. Walking away became the only choice. Losing the inheritance didn't hurt as much as losing my mother did. But I realized staying would only drain me further, trapping me in her anger and lies. I made a choice: to walk away quietly, to protect my peace and my sanity. No yelling, no revenge, no begging. I focused on building my own life, one free from manipulation and false accusations. For the first time in years, I felt relief instead of tension. Sometimes the hardest choice is the healthiest one, and letting go became my path to freedom. Months later, the truth began to catch up with them. My cousin, who had helped manipulate Mom, gained full control and favor. But with it came responsibilities he couldn't handle. Bills, property issues, and debts piled up, exposing his selfishness and greed. Suddenly, the inheritance he had chased so desperately became a burden he couldn't manage. Mom was left devastated, realizing too late that she had been deceived. And Dad? Alone, helpless, wishing he had spoken up sooner. I watched from a distance, untouched, knowing I had chosen peace over chaos, and that decision saved me. A year later, I received a long letter from Mom. 4 pages filled with apologies, regrets, and explanations I had waited years to hear. She admitted she had been misled, that she had pushed me away because of lies she believed. Reading her words was bittersweet, relief mixed with pain. By then, I had built a life far from her control, surrounded by people who valued and respected me. Her realization came too late, but it gave me closure. I no longer needed her approval, only peace, and I finally had it. Losing an inheritance wasn't the hardest part. The real loss was realizing that someone I loved and trusted could treat me with such coldness and cruelty. But over time, I understood something important. Family isn't just about blood or shared memories. True family is built on trust, loyalty, respect, and love that is consistent and genuine. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you become the ones who hurt you the most. They can manipulate, lie, or turn away when you need them the most. And as painful as that is, walking away from those relationships isn't betrayal. It's self-preservation. I learned that protecting your peace and mental health matters far more than holding on to anger, resentment, or expectations that will never be met. Letting go doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. I also realized that freedom comes from choosing who you allow in your life and what kind of energy you accept. Losing the money, the recognition, or even the approval of someone who couldn't see my worth was nothing compared to gaining clarity, self-respect, and peace of mind. In the end, I didn't lose everything. I gained a life that is truly my own, built on honesty, boundaries, and freedom.